I only have 3 things to say to you. Great sword! Great sword! Great sword! Oh, and if you are wondering, that over 3,000 damage hit isn't even the highest damage possible in the game. If you'd like to see the highest damage possible in the game, check out the link down below. It's going to make you very happy if you're a lover of greatsword. Hello then, my fellow hunters and my fellow wielders of, well, the best weapon. And I know you might think that that's just an opinion, every weapon can be best depending on what you like most, and obviously, of course, that would make you wrong. So today I want to do a little bit of an update on greatsword's builds, its meta, and just kind of touch base as we're a fair amount on from the launch of the game. And I have some good news. The set that I recommended to you guys a couple weeks ago now remains the mathematically correct highest damage greatswordiness. However, there is some things to address, some things to talk about, especially when it comes to the weapon, and some changes we can make, or at least can consider making, and thus here we are, with me talking to you. Or am I behind you? In any case, let's get into it then, as we return to the School of Greatsword and push it to its absolute limits. Just as I will through all of WoW's its title updates, its inevitable Master Rank expansion, and hell, in every Monster Hunter game beyond it too. Seriously, I have been playing Greatsword since the very first Monster Hunter, and that was like 21 years ago now. I'm pretty sure Lauren thinks I love the Greatsword more than her. Anyway, let's get into this then with the weapon. Before then, the play was to use an artian greatsword that had the element the monster you were hunting was weakest to. We don't care about pushing or supporting the element, we're not using any elemental skills, no elemental attack up, but technically, as we don't lose any raw potential by having the element, well, we may as well have the element that the monster doesn't like, and over the course of a hunt, it'll add a decent-ish chunk of damage. However, that was on the assumption that an average hunt length would be about 10 minutes, where you have to do enough damage over a long enough period of time that that little bit of extra element per hit will add up to be superior to any other option. The reality that's come to happen, though, is, well, we're absolutely just dumpstering monsters in under 5 minutes, as low as 3 minutes, even if you're not speedrunning, and, well, that means our timeline of damage is much, much shorter, and in that timeline of damage, your winner becomes Sleep, a status artian with these rolls specifically. 7 attack, 3 from the construction, and 4 from the reinforcement, and then a sharpness boost. The 1 sharpness boost will mean that you essentially just never have to sharpen, as the hits that you will have, all 50 of them, all 60 of them, will last you a hunt, and you'll kill the monster before ever needing to touch a whetstone. Technically, if you're wanting to really lock in, or you like speed running, you can get away with just a full 8 attack rolls, all 5 reinforcements being attack, so you end up with a 230 attack weapon, and that's what we'll take for some maths later on, but in a realistic, comfy world where you just want to enjoy your hunting, this is now the ideal greatsword. And we choose Sleep over anything else because in that short hunt duration, you'll get 1 or 2 sleeps, which means you'll get a double damage hit on a true charge, which is worth an extra like 500 to 800 or so damage on average, which is sizable. And, well, that will outdo your other options, at least in the current state of things. What you ideally want to do then is watch for the right of the screen when that sleep pops up. The second that's there, the monster is going to start its sleep animation. Hopefully, and it does take a little bit of luck and a little bit of knowing when the monster should be about ready to fall asleep, you'll get a feel for it per monster. You want to go into a true charge such that you can let go so the little hit hits the monster just before it finishes falling asleep, and then your big hit will wake it up. Like I almost did here. I jumped the gun a tiny bit early. I could have gone to full maximum true charge, and it would have been perfect, but hey, everyone is only mortal. But that's kind of the goal. But even if that doesn't work out, just doing a regular old normal slow build-up wake-up hit is still going to be really, really tasty. That said though, as monsters get harder, as fights get longer, as elemental hit zones get better, it will start to drift back towards an element's greatsword being the better option, so hey, watch this space. So that's where the weapon currently ends up, and nothing else hugely has changed on that regard. Let's go over to the set then. As you may remember, the new Udra helmet, with the rest being gore magala and the exploiter double weakness exploit talisman. When we go over to your decorations, this is how they fall, and I finally, of course, have long since got my third tenderizer, so I can actually finish weakness exploit. This gives us the antivirus for your 25% affinity, your maximum might for 30%, your Wex for another 30%, and of course a little bit more on wounds, and that lovely counter-strike for 25 extra raw when we do our shoulder tackle, or when, you know, you make a mistake and you get hit, but that literally never happens to me. And this gives us a really, really solid selection of skills. On your weapon very specifically then, you want to, like last time, finish your critical boost to level 5, and then very specifically you want focus with handicraft for 10 extra hits of white sharpness. There isn't really a better option, and this makes it just that little bit more comfortable. And like I said, if you do have this and think you can work with 30 hits of white sharpness, which means you will need to sharpen, you can get the full 8 attack rolls on your weapon for a 230 raw weapon. But that then is that. So what is the main juice of what I want to talk about today? Well, it's the other option you may have heard of, and it largely revolves around maximum might uptime. And before we get into it, I want to really stress the 4 constitution that this set comes with. We get a 4th rank from the free 1 slot, as there's really nothing else to do better with a single 1 slot, and as we know, this reduces our stamina use by 40%, which means our rolls, our tackles, they're gonna use less stamina. So for max might then, so how it works is thus, apart from, you know, giving you a perpetual red glow, which I really hope at some point we get the ability to toggle off. As soon as you lose stamina, you will start a 2-second timer. After that 2 seconds of not being at full stamina, it will deactivate. So if I roll around and boom, there it is, 2 seconds have passed, so maximum might has worn off. Now then, once we get back to full stamina, another 2-second timer will start to reactivate the skill, and boom. So that's your general flow, which means if you regain back to full stamina before the 2 seconds are up, well then you don't actually lose maximum might. Now it does remember how much of that 2 seconds you've used, it doesn't reset the grace period, so if I do another single roll, now we do lose it. So our constitution means that we can do a single roll, not burn out the timer, and then keep the maximum might. Yes, the next time we drop stamina we will drop it, but that is unavoidable. So that's why that helps, and it gives that smooth maximum might uptime. Now, to really stress something else, our biggest damage hit is obviously true charge, and that is what we're going to be landing as much as possible from everything the greatsword does. So if I get to just straight up no stamina, like literally absolutely 0 stamina, completely drain my bar, so this is as extreme a test as possible, because how often do you actually drain your full bar like that? Yeah, not very much, but even with a full drained bar, as you can see, you activate maximum might before that true charge connects when you do your standard DPS combo. which means in a more realistic situation where you'll maybe do a roll, a single tackle, that's how much stamina you've used, you'll drop the max might for your single strong charge, but then always have it back for your true. Which means no matter what, true charges have essentially 100% uptime on that 30% affinity of max might, and true charges are the biggest source of your damage. So you might be asking, okay, cool, I love knowing all of this about maximum might, fun. So what's going on here? Well, let's look at the alternate potential set. It looks a little something like this. You drop the top 3 pieces to Gore and the new Udra, and you gain the Guardian Fulgur helm and gloves, along with the arkveld chest. This leads your skill lineup to be what you can see. You have lost the 4 set Gore, which is worth 15 raw, but you've gained 2 agitator and 1 burst. The burst is better than the 3rd rank of agitator that you could put in. The affinity isn't really useful, you're only gaining 2% affinity for that 3rd rank, whereas burst is worth 5 raw to greatsword, as you can't really activate the bigger 8 raw, so we have this extra 2 agitator and 1 burst. This gets us an average, because Agitator's got about a 50% uptime, of 4 raw from it and 5 from burst, so 9 raw instead of the 15 from 4 set Gore. So you might be immediately thinking, well, that's just worse then. In that sense, yes, but what you do gain is the 2 set from Fulgur Anjanath, Fulgur Anjanath's Will. And what that does is, as you can see, gives you a little extra bit of stamina on your bar. You've probably seen this, and you can spend that stamina as normal. And the thing is, spending this stamina doesn't get rid of maximum might, no matter how much you spend of it, and no matter how long it remains empty for. You'll only start that 2-second timer once you dip into your regular stamina bar, like so. So it enables you to do something like a roll and then a tackle without actually losing maximum might. Now, you still will lose it eventually, because you will dip into your regular stamina, but it kind of smooths out the curve a little bit. And thus, the conflict kind of comes up. What's better, 9 raw instead of 15, but a higher average maximum might uptime, or 15 raw instead of 9, but a lower maximum might uptime? Well, instead of just kind of say, well, it's the 4 set Gore, it's still the 4 set Gore, I wanted to run some tests because, hell, there's every chance I might be wrong. So what I did was fairly simple. I went to the training dummy and I did just the generic 1 strong charge into full true charge / roll, tackle, repeat until I'd got 20 hits. I did that with both sets, and I did it many, many times to get a nice, accurate average with both sets, over and over and over and over again. Now, the results of this are quite interesting, and I will bob it on screen for you now. The average damage of the Fulgur Anjanath variant was 7,673 across the 20 hits. The average damage of the Gore Magala version was 7,499, an average difference of 174. And that immediately says, oh, so the Fulgur 2 set instead of Gore 4 is by a tiny bit, like we're talking a percent here, a bit better. Well, yes, but actually no. See, the test was done with Agitator permanently on, because that's the training setting, right? It's either on or it's off. You can't really force it to simulate 50% uptime, unless you do it the hard way, which I did. So I repeated the test, doing another load of runs for that 20 hits, that regular combo, this time with Agitator off, and then the results were, well, thus. An average damage of 7,104. So then we take the average of no agitator and the average of 100% agitator to get 50% agitator, and we now get an average damage of 7,389. Which is obviously less than the 4 set 7,499, it's a difference of 110. Again, still absolutely tiny. This, of course, is just one test. There are other things we can do, and we will, but I think we can start to see that if there is a clear winner here, the difference is absolutely minuscule, and at least my results are leaning towards the Gore 4 set version. But let's actually do, the set math. So here we have the Fulgur MM set next to the 4-piece Gore set. As you can see, without adjusting for any kind of maximum might uptime, we get 477 EFR for Fulgur and 485 for Gore. That means that Gore 4 wins by 8 EFR, which again is less than 2% and kind of nothing. So let's do this again, but with maximum might uptime allowed for. I think it's fair to say that in the Gore 4 set, maximum might has a 75% uptime. You will have it down every now and then, but a lot of greatsword is planted, using your offsets, perfect guarding, and doing very minimal rolling. It's basically just shoulder tackling and very little repositioning as you're constantly on top of the monster. 75% feels right, but I didn't want to just, have it feel right. I hunted a load of arkvelds, went through all of my footage, and worked out how often maximum might was up, and 75% is a decent number. So for Fulgur MM 2 set, I did the same thing, and 90% uptime is about right there. Of course, everyone's results and playstyle and how clean you play is going to change this, and as a TLDR, the better you are with the weapon, the better you are at hunting the monster you're hunting, the more uptime, of course, both sets have, to the point where if you're absolutely perfect, well then the Gore 4 set definitely wins. But we're not doing this for perfect speedrunners, we're doing this for you and me, average we like the big sword. So let's do 90% uptime for Fulgur MM version. That's about fair. So in that instance, this is what it ends up looking like. We have 474 EFR from the Gore 4 set and 473 from the Fulgur, meaning that Gore wins by 1 EFR. Now, again, there is still variables I've not taken into account. Technically, you don't have the plus 15 raw from Gore 4 set all the time. It's an average of plus 14 to allow for the little bit of time you'll be overcoming the frenzy with antivirus. That's a very quick process on Greatsword, so it ends up being plus 14, not 15. Also, Agitator assumed at 50% isn't entirely accurate. If your hunt only lasts 3 minutes and the monster's angry for 2 minutes of it, well, that's then a 66% uptime, which is, of course, higher. And then we have just the raw maximum might uptime assumptions too. And technically speaking, if you have to shoulder tackle just before doing your true charge too much, you will end up not actually having maximum might on it, but you do get a freebie on that thanks to the Constitution. As you can see, it didn't drop there, but very occasionally that might happen. And look, you can go about this a lot of different ways, and I have. The point remains is that most of the time in most of the tests, 4-set Gore does come out on top EFR-wise. Sometimes Fulgur does. But what's true is that in every single instance I have done, the winner wins by less than 2%. More commonly, it is about 0.5% difference between the two sets. So when we've reached that kind of conclusion, the thing that might be easy to say is, well, what the hell was the point of any of this? Just use whichever one you like. And technically, yes, but also technically no. See, the big difference here, the big cincher, is corrupted mantle. So while you've got this on, you obviously gain 30% affinity. Once you have activated it fully, it's a big chunk of affinity, and this lasts 2 minutes. If hunt times are sub 5, which is about right, even for just a normal, just solid greatsworder, which of course you guys are, then you have got this extra 30% affinity for nearly half the hunt. Which means the maximum might affinity uptime suddenly doesn't matter because corrupted mantle is picking up the slack and then some. So in that instance, the foreset gore is head and shoulders above the Anjanath while you have corrupted mantle on, and while you have corrupted mantle on, that's most of your damage on a hunt, so it tips the scales if you really care about super min-maxing in the direction of gore foreset. And that's sort of where this ends up as a TLDR. I know a lot of this probably isn't interesting to some of you, but I can't help it. I love the weapon, I love Monster Hunter, I love doing these tests and these maths. But bottom line, this set here, using 2-set Anjanath for the extra stamina for more maximum might uptime, and then this set here using 4 pieces of gore and getting the extra raw from that 4-set, they are within 0.5% of each other, however you look at it. But during Corrupted Mantle specifically, Gore 4-set is the clear winner, and Corrupted Mantle has such a warping effect on the meta right now that that's enough for me to say that this is the winner. And then, of course, there is the 1 rank of resentment on the Udra helm. That's another +5 raw that is up a fair amount of time because you take red health if you botch an offset or a tackle and so on and so forth. So it technically does come into play. I've ignored it completely, but even if you say that it's like an average extra 0.5 raw over the hunt, well, it tips it further, so it's worth mentioning. And that's kind of where we end up. Other than that, there's some more niche options. I've covered crit draw recently. You can go into some power clashy stuff with dahaad, but that's very much speedrunner territory. Bottom line, you can use whichever of these is your preference, and you will do absolutely fine. But if you really care about pushing it as much as possible during Corrupted Mantle, then Gore 4-set is going to be your friend, and this right here then is the current mathematically tip-top greatsword build. I hope you found that somewhat interesting, enjoyable, etc. And I just kind of wanted to touch base with you guys more than anything as fellow wielders of greatsword, and more than anything, just ask how you're getting on. Any other sets you've been trying, any playstyles you've been enjoying with the weapon. Hell, I've been experimenting with a dragon conversion charge master greatsword, and it's actually been incredibly effective because greatsword element values are actually kind of nutty, so that's something I may well bring you at some point. Depends how soon the title update happens and likely shakes up everything once again. But as I say, I love this weapon. I love making sure everything is as tip-top as can be, and I will always be there to do my best for you guys as we wield it. So, for now, let me know everything greatsword in your lives. Like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.